Now, Saudi Arabia isn't the only country facing increasing isolation. On the same EU blacklist is Iran, except they're also facing opposition from more corners of the globe. In the past few days, a summit with representatives from more than 60 countries met in Warsaw. They concluded Tehran was the biggest threat to regional security. Now, that same day, a suicide bombing killed 27 people inside Iran, and Foreign Minister Mohammed Javad Zarif said it was no coincidence it happened on that same day. Then, at a security conference in Munich, he accused the U.S. and Israel of looking to wage war on Iran. Is he right? Or is the Israeli Prime Minister's rhetoric simply posturing before elections later this year? Well, here to debate that and more from Tehran is Iranian affairs analyst Saeed Mustafa Choshishim, and from Washington, D.C., Matthew Brodsky. He's a Middle East analyst and senior fellow at the Securities Studies Group. Thank you so much for joining us, both of you. Let me begin in Tehran. Saeed, you are certain that Israel is out to escalate tensions with Iran for a variety of reasons. Why? Why would Israel need to do that?
As far as the Poland conference and the overall climate in the region is concerned, I believe that the Warsaw conference had two goals. Iran was the overstated target, but it was of secondary importance, and Israel mattered a lot. Actually, that was the covert or hidden agenda of the conference in two aspects. One was a publicity campaign for Benjamin Netanyahu before the election. That he is accused of corruption charges, as well as his wife. And it's a very traditional tactic to derail the public opinion from domestic policy and political, scene at home to some boogeyman abroad and to the scene of national security and foreign policy. And who could be a better boogeyman than Iran when it comes to Israel? And who could be a better person than Netanyahu to shout about Iran's threat? So he is trying to derail the public opinion, actually. And if national security tops the agenda in the next election, surely Netanyahu will have a better chance than others. Also, in the last clashes between Israelis and Palestinians, it lasted only 2 days. After 2 days of exchanging rockets and missile fire, the Israelis request a ceasefire. That was a damage to Israeli military, like they were surrendering to the Palestinians. Now Netanyahu wants to show to the whole world, and especially to the Israelis, that the military has not degraded and weakened. If Iran's allies like Hamas have reinvigorated and empowered more than before, now he is grasping, and attracting more support from some Arab states that were called enemies. They used to be having a front against Israel. Now he is trying to show that they are aligning with him. So that's the publicity, and there is also another reason that I will point out later with regard to the regional issues.
But as you say, Netanyahu is trying to show that they are allying with him. They were at this conference. Key Arab leaders appeared alongside Benjamin Netanyahu for the first time, arguably since 1991, really. You can point your finger at Israel and the United States here, but there were many other key Arab leaders involved.
Remember, who leaked the footage to the media? Admittedly by Netanyahu's office. Also, who leaked the information that Arab leaders were going to Netanyahu's residence? Because if it hadn't been the Arab officials and their offices, because they were escaping reporters, and reporters were chasing them to ask them if they have had a meeting with Netanyahu. Surely all these have been publicity campaigned by him. But on the regional scale, I believe Israel is escalating tensions along with the United States in order to force Arab states and regional nations into a situation of choosing sides, like what George W. Bush said, his policy, you're either with us or against us. In this aspect, the Arab states would join Israel very fast at the lowest cost. They would change sides.
Okay. Saeed, I have to get to Matthew. Matthew, I saw you chuckling at a few points there, so let me get your response.
Well, first of all, hearing what he said is kind of like viewing policy and what's happening through a photo negative where everything is pretty much the opposite of what you've heard. The Arab world is becoming more aligned with Israel and, of course, more so with the United States because it views, quite correctly, Iran as the greatest regional threat. That's a fact. It's unfortunate that Europe is simply not going along with it when it comes to sanctions on Iran and keeping them in the nuclear deal, but that's a separate issue. Iran has been taking over, essentially creating parallel institutions inside of Iraq. It already runs Lebanon through through Hezbollah, which is essentially Iran's own Arab force and political party. And in Syria, it's been embarked on an entrenchment enterprise for a long period of time. So this has the Arab world and, of course, Israel relatively up in arms and wanting to do something about it. Now, luckily, Israel has been the only country in Syria that has been militarily targeting Iran and its assets. The United States has not. It's not authorized by the Congress to go after Iran there. It can only go after ISIS. Now, Israel has had a lot of success. They've basically led to a reduction of Iran's forces there. And due to all the damage that's been done, Iran has been forced to put a lot of the missiles, the ballistic missiles that it's been bringing in that can target Saudi Arabia and target Israel toward Western Iraq. And they've also been building up missile production facilities next to the airport inside of Lebanon. So this is what Iran is doing. It's an offensive posture. And of course, their ideology says that they want to wipe Israel off the map as part of the revolutionary creed. So
Matthew,
these are all real things Iran is doing.
Right. And very quickly, I mean, you are alluding to something that actually Syed was also talking about. But the question here is, how much has the presidency of Donald Trump alone just antagonized the Arab-Iranian relationship, that poor conflictual relationship they had, unlike the administration before that was trying to engage, obviously, in more diplomacy? I mean, both the Trump administration and Netanyahu, what Syed is saying, want to capitalize on whatever time they have in office right now to antagonize this relationship further. It seems to be working for them politically. Can you acknowledge that that is a dynamic at play specifically because of Trump and Netanyahu?
No, I don't believe that that's the case. The case is that under President Obama, he created a horrible nuclear deal that still guaranteed Iran nuclear weapons after a determined amount of time and did nothing to address all of Iran's pernicious regional behavior. And it's the regional behavior right now, not just the nuclear issue, it's more what it's doing inside of Iraq, Syria, and with ballistic missiles that has the Arab world and Israel more or less reading from the same page. Now, what Trump and Netanyahu have agreed on is that Iran is a greater threat. Obama had a completely different approach. So whoever was going to be in power was going to be disagreeing with the Obama administration if they were a Republican, because that was, in fact, a horrible deal.
It does, in a sense, though, illustrate the point.
Led to this problem.
That prior to this, there was an attitude that diplomacy, with the European allies of the United States, diplomacy would work better. That's all changed now. But let me go back.
And the Iran.
You can say it's right or wrong, but it is very.
I was just going to say the Iran-Sunni-Shia divide is long.
That's fair as well. But I mean, Syed, I do have to raise something with you that Matthew brings up. Do you believe it's worked in Iran's interest now after so many decades, even during the less hawkish administrations in both Israel and the United States, for Iran to continue its conflictual rhetoric, its constant death to America, death to Israel? Is Iran at fault here for helping get to this point now where we feel like we're on the border of outright conflict between Iran, the United States, Israel, and Arab allies of those two? Go ahead.
Let me point out a few points here. I have 2 points to raise. First of all, when it comes to Iran-Israel, Iran, at maximum, there has been a exchange of threats okay, a couple of Iranian leaders have stated only in words that they mean to wipe off Israel. But the Israeli regime has not only been stressing that they intend to wipe Iran off the map, at least 2 cabinet ministers have stated that in the last several months, but also the Israeli premier stood at an undeclared nuclear facility and threatened Iran. When I say undeclared, that means because Israel is a nuclear power, but it has kept it secret from international monitoring and inspection. And it's been threatening, Netanyahu was threatening to destroy Iran. They've been staging drills, and they have not been shy of expressing their animosity. And when it comes to action, Iran has not done anything, but allegedly, they've been bombing Iranian facilities. Iran says it doesn't have any facility in western Syria, but Israelis have been stressing that they've been bombing and killing Iranians. Iran says it's been they've been advisors. Israel says they've been combat forces. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter because they have been Iranians. So Iranian militaries have been killed by Israel on the land of a third-party state, a sovereign state. That's Bashar al-Assad and Syria. Hold on a second. Hold on a second. But my objection to your assessment. Could you please let me finish my words?
Quickly, Syed.
My objection to the assessment of my colleague is not in here. My main point is that as far as Iran is concerned, the United States' strategy under Obama or President Trump is the same. There has been no change. There has been nothing different. And I can prove that to you very easily if you give me some time. I'll bring it up to you how they have been working in the same line. Only the tactics are different.
Matthew, I mean, we're down to our final minutes, and I want to get this in there. I mean, Israel is rallying now around these, what seems to be developing as Arab allies, it's calling, in the region. Netanyahu was obviously very proud at the Warsaw Conference to be standing alongside these other Arab leaders. But these are still, at the heart, these are still countries who will not even let people who have Israeli stamps in their passport enter the country, much less Israelis themselves. There's still the travel bans. Are these partners Israel wants? Is this the right strategic direction for Israel to go in, simply to rally support in the interest of working against one common enemy?
Yes, I will answer that. I still need to address quickly what we just heard, which was, again, Israel is holding military operations and drills inside of its own country for military preparedness. That's not the same thing as going throughout the region and setting up military bases next to Iran's borders. And we've seen, since Iran has essentially secured Assad in power, they are shifting and been shipping in the ballistic missiles, offensive weapons capabilities. This isn't to defend Assad and keep him in power. It is designed to attack Israel. That's quite a different thing. Now, as far as Israel and the Arab world having a better sense of normalization and better relations, I think that that's very important. And of course, the fact that they bond over the fact that they see Iran as the major regional
So you endorse this argumentation
is something
of Israel.
that is positive and something that will, of course, be embraced by Israel. Because the fact is, if the United States, under any administration, decides that it wants less to do with the Middle East militarily, then frankly, it is up to Israel and the Arab world to deal with these problems, probably with America's support, most hopefully, in the background. And that seems to have worked rather well, at least for Israel, when it comes to Syria. Now, whether Israel has to expand that into Iraq in the future, we'll see.
Right. Matthew, unfortunately, I'm going to have to cut it off there and have to give you the last word because we're completely out of time for this segment.
That's a good argumentation.
My apologies. Let me
just ask you a question.
Perhaps we can continue the discussion later, but thank you both so much for joining us.
Just one question. If that argumentation is correct, that Iran should be, struck because its present in Syria near Israel, then Iran would also be allowed to bomb all U.S. and Israeli bases operating at Iran's, neighbors. They have bases all around Iran. Then Iran would be, logically free and entitled to the right to bomb all these facilities. Is that the argumentation? Is that a correct argumentation?
Okay. We're going to have to leave it there. Thank you both so much for taking the time. We really appreciate it. Sorry it couldn't be a longer segment.